In summary, the President's overall health is excellent. His cardiac performance during his physical exam was very good. He continues to enjoy the significant long-term cardiac and overall health benefits that come from a lifetime of abstinence from tobacco and alcohol. We discussed diet, exercise, and weight loss. He would benefit from a diet that is lower in fat and carbohydrates and from a routine exercise regimen. He has a history of elevated cholesterol and is currently on a low dose of Crestor. In order to further reduce his cholesterol level and further decrease his cardiac risk, we will increase the dose of this particular medication. The President is currently up to date on all recommended preventive medicine and screening tests and exams. All clinical data indicates that the President is currently very healthy and that he will remain so for the duration of his presidency. Okay, with that, I'll take some questions. Before we get started, let me just make one comment. I'd just like to point out for all of you here in this room, many of you which know me, if something should happen to you over the next few months and you should fall ill at some point, that most likely I will be the one called to come and take care of you. So when you ask your questions, please keep that in mind. Yes, sir.
Dr. Jackson, how much weight have you suggested the President lose? And he has not exactly been enthusiastic about exercising. The President kind of believes that we all have a finite battery. Why waste it on exercising when you can put it toward other pursuits? So what did you counsel him about that?
Right, that's right. So, I think the President, he and I talked, and he would like to lose over the next, I think a reasonable goal over the next year or so is to lose 10 to 15 pounds. We talked about diet and exercise a lot. He's more enthusiastic about the diet part than the exercise part, but we're going to do both. He and I will work together over the next year to incorporate a good plan so that we can meet those goals.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson.
Yes.
Thank you. Two questions for you. Number one, there have been some questions as part of your exam. I'm wondering if you talked to the President about this, about the President's mental fitness. He has pushed back on that, calling himself a staple genius. Can you assess the President's mental fitness for office?
Absolutely. So many of you may have picked up on the fact that we did do a cognitive assessment as part of the exam. And initially, I had no intention of including a cognitive assessment in this exam because, to be honest with you, per all the guidelines that are out there, it's not indicated at this time. A lot of the guidelines would suggest that you do cognitive screening questions, and that if you have a positive or concerning answer in the screening questions, that then you engage with a cognitive screening tool. So I had no intentions whatsoever of doing that, like I said, because I didn't feel it was clinically indicated. And part of the reason I didn't think it was clinically indicated is because I've spent almost every day in the President's presence since January 20, 2000, or last year, when he got into office. And I've seen him every day. I see him one, two, sometimes three times a day because of the location of my office. We have conversations about many things. Most don't revolve around medical issues at all. But I've got to know him pretty well. And I had absolutely no concerns about his cognitive ability or his neurological function. So I was not going to do a cognitive exam. I had no intention of doing one. The reason that we did the cognitive assessment is plain and simple because the President asked me to do it. He came to me and he said, is there something we can do, a test or some type of screen that we can do to assess my, my cognitive ability? And so I looked into it. And once again, and my initial question was that I didn't think it was indicated and I didn't think we should do it. After looking at some of the guidelines, there are a few guidelines out there that lean in the direction of potentially doing it. The Medicare guidelines and some of the NIH, National Institute of Aging, they've indicated that it might be a good thing to start doing for most patients in the future. With that in mind, I went through and I looked at a variety of the cognitive assessments that were available. Most of them were very simple, very short, and I think that's the goal actually for primary care providers in doing this is to keep it simple, keep it short. We picked one of the ones that was a little bit more involved. It was longer. It was the more difficult one of all of them. It took significantly longer to complete, but the President did exceedingly well on it. So that was not driven at all by any clinical concerns I have. It was driven by the President's wishes, and he did well on it.
So to follow up, the President's